Hello, all my fellow light makers. It is Malcolm Grissom, the stand-up CEO and founder of the World Laughter Organization, because I laugh and we all laugh. And it's an organization of people laughing because that's what it's all about. Anyway, today on the Lighten Up Project, we are going to be talking. It's going to be another fascinating conversation, as they all are on this podcast. They're all very fascinating conversations. Today, our fascinating conversation is going to be all about speaking and storytelling and turning the stage into a client-generating machine, which is what a lot of us entrepreneurs really want. And so we are going to be privileged to have a conversation with my guest, Dr. Danny Brassell. He is the highly sought-after speaker, trainer, and coach. He's often described as Jim Carrey with a PhD. I know it's gonna be a snooze fest. You have two people with a lot of energy who are going to be talking, and we're gonna be exchanging energy and ideas. And I know, snooze fest, right? Yeah, beware, people. Danny has spoken on over 3,500 stages worldwide. He's authored 21 books. He's co-authored a well-crafted story helping entrepreneurs and organizations use storytelling to connect, engage, and convert. Now, because of Danny, it's not just about getting on stage. It's about making what you say matter. So if you've ever wondered how to turn your message into momentum, this conversation is for you. So let's lighten up, let's tell better stories, and let's welcome Danny Brassell.
Thank you so much, Malcolm, for all you do. I really appreciate you having me on here on your podcast today. Thanks for spreading some joy around the world.
You're welcome. All right, sir. So would you mind joining me in 20 seconds of spontaneous laughter? That's a yes, people. Oh, okay. Well, let's count it down. Let's 1, 2, 3, laugh.
Burning the calories.
That's right. Yes. Calorie burning.
That's right.
And muscle relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
And energizing. All right. Well, what, sir, is Jim Carrey with the PhD, you've got to have a really special relationship with laughter.
Is that a question?
Yeah. That's right. Yes, I did that, and it wasn't like a question mark. I love it. Yes, yes, that was a question. What is your relationship with laughter, sir?
Well, I learned long ago to take my job seriously, but not take myself too seriously, Malcolm, because I ain't all that, neither are you. And if you think you're all that, teach kindergarten for a week. The little ones will set you straight. I was teaching kindergarten once, and one of my little girls, LaShonda, raised her hand. I'm like, LaShonda, question. She's like, Miss Brassell, when are you going to trim your nose hair? I'm like, this afternoon. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I ain't all that, and I need to laugh a lot more.
Yes. When was the last time you really had a genuine laugh, and what was it about?
Goodness. Yesterday I was watching My Cousin Vinny. I think it's one of the funniest movies ever made. Every single scene's hilarious, and so I was just laughing at everything. Every scene builds on the other, and it's very funny. So I that's why I'm drawn to you, Malcolm. I think I was watching a horrible show on TV last week. It was called The News, and it was just so depressing. And I'm like, gosh, life's too short. So surround yourself with people that make you laugh and read things that inspire you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That show, a lot of people watch that show daily, and now they look at it 24/7 almost online. It's a terrible show. It's very depressing, very depressing. And it's also media run, so it's not necessarily truthful. So there's always a spin on it that the media has. Usually they want to bring out drama, much like our TV programs as well. They bring out drama. What do you think about reality TV, Danny? Can I call you Danny?
Of course.
Dr. Danny?
Of course. Just call me Danny, Malcolm.
Like Dr. Danny?
I don't watch reality TV. The only reality TV I like to watch are sports, because sports at any given moment, something amazing can happen. So that's what I like to watch.
This is true. Yes, this is true. Definitely. So you've spoken to over 3,500 audiences. What keeps it exciting for you each time you step on stage?
Oh, I love going on stage. I've never met a microphone I don't enjoy. And I think probably what makes it exciting is when something completely unexpected happens. So once I was speaking to 900 teachers in Wichita, Kansas, and there was a tornado and the power went out. And I asked the janitor for his flashlight. And for the next 90 minutes, I spoke in the dark. That was exciting. I've had plenty of problems with technology where the PowerPoint doesn't work. And so it taught me, I'll tell the audience, hey, just so you know, when the tech goes down, I teach you a song. So we're singing. And so that was fun. Probably the best one was I was in India in 2018 touring schools, and the principal opened up a door and there was 5,000 kids in an auditorium. There was 20 newspapers and 5 TV stations. And the principal announced, now for the next hour, Dr. Brassell is going to teach us the 3 secrets to reading better. Malcolm, nobody's told me I'm speaking, and I have no such speech, but I had 5,000 kids. I had media. So fortunately, it was India. I got to speak a little bit slower, and I looked at the kids. I'm like, today, I am going to teach you the 3 secrets to reading better. Who wants to learn the 3 secrets to reading better? And the kids are going wild. And in my head, I'm like, what the heck are the 3 secrets to reading better? And using the exact same formula that I trained my clients to use today, in 30 seconds, I was able to develop a presentation that was broadcast to 1.5 billion people. And now I have a company based on that presentation. So I like it. I like having to think on my feet.
Mm-hmm. So how much of speaking is skill, and then how much of it is actually personality based?
Well, I think personality always influences it, but speaking is a skill. You can be trained how to speak. Most of the people I work with either have no interest in speaking or they're completely terrified of speaking. And I've been blessed with lots of wonderful coaches and mentors throughout my career. One of my mentors was a gentleman by the name of Jim Rohn. And Jim used to say, you can't pay other people to do your push-ups. Translation, you got to do the work. I promise you, the very first time you did your podcast, Malcolm, it sucked. And the second time you did the podcast, it sucked, but it didn't suck as bad as it did the first time. And now that you've been doing it for a while, you're starting to get in your groove. You're feeling a little bit more confident. The same with speaking on stages. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
I thought for a moment you were going to say, and now that you've been doing it for a while, it still sucks. But you didn't. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. Yeah, definitely. So Can now here's the question. So you said that it's a skill, it's a learned skill, but can someone with no personality become a speaker?
Of course. I thought Al Gore did a great, this isn't a political conversation, by the way. This is just an example. Is Al Gore, the vice president, when he was running for president, he was made fun of because he was kind of stiff. And so what he did, which I thought was ingenious, was he embraced it. He said, here's Al Gore happy. Here's Al Gore sad. Here's Al Gore laughing. Here's Al Gore excited. And that's what, if you ever watch the best comedians, which I always encourage people, you should watch lots of speakers to get better. And comedians are great teachers. One of the things that they do is they take their weaknesses and turn it into their strengths. So if you watch Kevin Hart is a short black guy, so he makes a lot of jokes about being a short black guy. Jim Gaffigan's a big fat white guy, so he makes a lot of jokes about being a big fat white guy. By taking what their perceived weakness is and making fun of it, they've actually turned it into a strength, and there's genius in that. And so, for example, I'm working with a woman right now who she's terrified on stage. She shakes visibly. And so I said, just own up to it. Just tell everybody you're completely nervous. You're about to pee your pants, because audiences are actually a lot cooler than you would think. You and I have both been to presentations where the speaker stunk, and there's nothing more uncomfortable for everybody in the room than to watch somebody dying on stage. So when you just embrace it right from the beginning, you'll be amazed at how the audience will start to root for you, say, no, you can do this, you can do this. And so that's one of the techniques I teach my clients to embrace.
Okay. So what's the difference between a speaker that people enjoy, they come away from the speech saying, oh, that was funny, I enjoyed that, or that was educational. I'm stuck on comedians right now. That was educational, I enjoyed that. And the speaker then that people remember, the headliner, so to speak, of the speaking world.
Yeah, so there's a lot of great speakers that tell really interesting stories, but the great speakers, they tell stories with intention. That intention is to get you to do something else. And so when I work with clients and they come up to me and say, hey, I got a standing ovation, I'm like, good for you. Or they'll say, hey, people think I'm a great speaker. I'm like, that's wonderful. But that's not how I evaluate you as a speaker. The only way I evaluate you and your effectiveness is how many people in your audience decided to take the next step with you. Now, that next step can be an unpaid next step, like subscribe to my podcast, or if you're a politician, vote for me. More typically with most of my clients, it's a paid offer, like buy my product or invest in my coaching program. We want your presentation to move hearts, but more importantly, we also want it to move the needle. And that's how people remember the best speakers, is they got them to take action.
Yes. Okay. So you were talking earlier about honesty and owning what we have, which is when it's how I first became comfortable on stage as a comedian. So for those of you that don't know, the listeners that haven't followed the podcast, Dr. Danny, you might not know this as well. I have a disability, but from a childhood virus, and it affected my speech. In fact, I had to relearn how to walk and talk. And so when I was first becoming a comedian, there was this point. Well, like many comedians, they have a point of getting used to the stage and developing their comic persona. And for me, I had that. It was almost tenfold because of my differences.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the first things that I did, that I learned how to do, is it's really get up there and name it. And that's, in fact, now that I'm getting older and now that I have the senior moments, or I will have the senior moments, and I have my wandering thought moments from my, from my brain damage. I almost on every podcast, I have to start with that, let everybody know this is what's going on. And so, if I start moving around and going crazy and saying Marco Polo and playing with it, what's happening. Anyway, that was a long story to ask you about what the downsides of being honest. So what's one mistake that speakers can make which could possibly immediately cause them to lose the role?
Well, I believe that it's important to be vulnerable, but you need to be conscious of your vulnerability. It's, you watch comedians today, they can make fun of, they can make a joke about President Lincoln being assassinated, but I bet you in 1865, it probably wasn't so funny to talk about it that way. Time was what healed it. It's one thing to say that you once were in prison. It's another thing entirely to say, I got out of prison yesterday. Well, the audience now has a different reaction to what you're saying. And so you have to be comfortable on stage with and own up to things. But I'm a big believer in owning up to your vulnerabilities. I think that's the biggest strength of any speaker. The biggest weakness I see in most people is they brag all the time. And I always insist to my clients, I'm like, stop sharing your successes. Start sharing your failures, because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they've all failed. And the more you share your own failures, the more your audience is going to see themselves in you, which is ultimately what you want to do to connect with an audience. For example, your perceived disability, you can tell people, well, I didn't let my disability define me. I decided I was going to embrace it and get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's when you're going to start getting people nodding like, wow, I'm looking at Malcolm in a totally different way. This is somebody that pushes through perceived limitations. And that's the strength of any speaker.
So yes, so vulnerability is super powerful. Can a story that a speaker thinks is vulnerable, this is something that I want to share and connect with the audience. Can it, and have you seen it where it's actually been the reverse? So the speaker thinks, I'm going to share this. This is going to be great for connecting. And it's actually something that turns the audience off.
Well, I mean, obviously, yeah, you want to think about the intention of the story. So here's an exercise. This is one of the first exercises I take my clients through, Malcolm, is I want you to, later on, I want you to sit in a comfortable chair with a pen and paper, libation of choice, and for an hour, I want you to write down every story that's ever happened to you. And I don't mean the entire story, I just mean triggers, like the time I locked myself out of the car in front of Costco, the time Dad spilt mustard on his tie when we went to that fancy restaurant. You'll find in an hour you can come up with a couple of hundred stories like this. So that's the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise, and this is directly related to your question, is then you want to understand, what's this story really about? Oh, this is a story about never giving up. Oh, this is a story about my priorities. Oh, this is a story about love. I literally have on my computer hundreds of files with tens of thousands of stories. And so when I want to connect with my audience with a certain emotion, I know exactly the story that's going to meet that emotion. And again, that's the important thing, is trying to find the emotion, the intention. What separates me from a lot of the so-called speaking coaches is most speaking coaches will say, oh, you got to show you're vulnerable. Talk about the worst moment of your life. There's three reasons why I choose not to do this. First of all, The world just survived a global pandemic. Everybody's had bad things happen to them. I don't think we need more sad stories. I think we need more uplifting stories of hope. Second of all, I'm teaching my clients how to create what I call a well-crafted story. Politicians would call this a stump speech. I've heard people call it a signature talk. You can call it peanut butter and jelly. It doesn't matter what you call it. This is a presentation you're going to deliver again and again to introduce yourself to new audiences. Well, do you really want to share the most traumatizing moment of your life again and again? I mean, I have a friend, his daughter was killed in a school shooting. He's delivered that speech over 1,000 times. He's a lot stronger than me. I could never talk about something like that. And third, and this is what appeals to me about your podcast, Malcolm, is I have one basic objective when I'm on stage. I want you to leave feeling better than when you came in. I want you laughing, smiling, happy. I think there's something admirable about that as a basic objective. I believe the people that tell the same sad story again and again, by the 20th time they're telling it, now those are crocodile tears and now they're being manipulative. And I'm not saying it's not an effective sales technique. It's actually a very effective sales technique. But I personally don't want to have to take a shower when I get off stage because I just manipulated my audience. There are ethical ways to get people to want to do business with you. And, you know, I like to always quote research and why I do what I do. And so the research I'm going to quote is the movie Monsters, Inc., in which we discovered that laughter is actually more powerful than fear. And so that's why I like to focus on funny stories, because just like how you began the podcast, is you got us laughing. I'm like, we need a lot more joy in the world. Life's too short. And all of us are on this rock for a little bit of time. We might as well be kinder to one another and have a few laughs. And so the people that love to intentionally give these stories of sadness, that can, getting back to the basis of your question, I mean, it's one thing if you lost a child 20 years ago and are talking about it. It's another thing if you lost your child last week. Now everybody in the audience is uncomfortable because you're still going through it. It's very traumatic. I mean, take your perceived disability as an example, Malcolm. I mean, you know, if it just happened, that's going to make everybody uncomfortable. You've embraced it. You've had it for a long time, and you said, I'm not going to let it hold me down. And so now your story is inspiring. It's not depressing. And that's the power of time.
So you talked about well-crafted story a little bit, and now I want to delve a little deeper into that. What exactly makes a well-crafted story? What makes it well-crafted?
So you have to forgive me. I'm a former teacher, so everything I do either rhymes or it's alliterative. And so my co-founders and I, we teach people what we call the 5 C's framework. My co-founders are Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson and Dave Ward. I call us the professor, the performer, and the producer, because my background is academia. Coach Jimmy was a Broadway actor, and Dave is an attorney. And so the 5 C's are, before we put together your presentation, first of all, we need clarity. There are 2 questions you have to ask yourself before you ever go on stage. Who is your audience, and what is the problem that you solve? And you'd be amazed, 95% of the people we work with cannot answer one or both of those questions in a succinct manner. Once you're completely clear about your audience and what you do for them, then you need to connect with your audience. You need to teach meaningful content that serves them. You have to have one clear call to action. And finally, you have to have an emotional close that gets people jumping out of their seats to work with you. If you can do all of that, then you have created a well-crafted story. I'm going to toot my horn because for the first time in my entire life, the other night I gave a presentation and I had a 100% conversion rate. I have never had a 100% conversion rate. I've had a high conversion rate, but never 100%. And so I'll toot my horn. I was like, wow, that was a good presentation. But that's what we're trying to do with people. I can figure out when I'm working with a person. So I'll give you an example. By the way, whenever I name clients, I use different names. I believe my clients deserve their discretion. All you have to do is ask my co-founder, Coach Jimmy. He'll tell you everybody we work with because he loves to name drop, but I prefer indiscretion. So we're working with one of the world's top nutrition experts. I'm going to call her Dr. Kathy. And Dr. Kathy, she was ending her presentation. She said, I want you all to get my program. It's a 90-day diet program. It'll help you. It's 1997. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. You can't end your presentation there. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you have to understand there are two types of people in your audience. I'm going to be very stereotypical and call it the husband and the wife. The husband is Joe Friday. Joe Friday is the guy sitting there in the audience with his arms crossed, looking at you skeptically like, who's this person? What are they trying to sell me? What's it going to cost? What do I got to do? How long is it going to take? And a clear call to action addresses all of those questions to the satisfaction of Joe Friday. But if you end your presentation with your call to action like Dr. Kathy was doing, you're ignoring the wife. The wife, she's Julia Roberts. She doesn't care what it costs. She just wants to feel good. I listen to Malcolm's podcast because it always makes me feel good. It inspires me. And so you need to make sure to address the needs of all of those people in your audience. And so basically, she needed an emotional close to her presentation. And I said, well, what do you want your audience to do? And she said, I want them to buy my program. I'm like, yes, I know you want them to buy your program, Dr. Kathy. It drives me nuts. I went like that for 5 minutes. Finally, we got to the heart of the matter. She's like, I want them to understand they can't do it on their own. Oh, you need to hire an expert story. She's like, what's that? And I'm like, I'll give you an example. I'll leave you all with this. Many years ago, my wife and I, we had theater tickets. We were dressed to the nines, driving to the theater, and we got a flat tire. My wife said, well, I'll call AAA and get a tow truck. I looked at her. I'm like, you don't have to call AAA. I'm a man. I can fix a flat tire. So I got out of the car and I opened up the trunk and I got the spare tire, and then I got the pumper thing, and then I got the big jack thing to try and take out the nuts on the tire. And basically 27 minutes later, I had grease all over me. I hadn't fixed the flat tire. I look up, my wife is standing beside the car with her arms crossed, shaking her head with an expression like, I could have done so much better than this guy. Well, unbeknownst to me, 27 minutes earlier, she had called AAA, and this tow truck shows up, and this 17-year-old punk hops out of the tow truck and proceeds to fix my flat tire in 3 minutes flat. You know, I think there are times in life when all of us think we can do it on our own, but if you want to save time, you want to save money, and you want to save a whole lot of headache and embarrassment, you hire an expert. And so what I've just shown Dr. Kathy is, how do you take a totally different story as a metaphor into driving their action to what you want them to do? So that action, you have to figure out, what is it that you want your audience to do? Do you want them to take action? Do you want them to understand that they can stop the status quo? What is it that you want your audience to do? When you think about that, that's where we start. That's the starting point. Let's create the story based on the action you want the audience to take.
Okay. So would you say that having that and answering that one question, what do you want them to do? Would you say that that is the biggest shift that speakers need to make in order to convert more? Or is there another bigger shift?
Yeah, it's definitely a big shift, Malcolm. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes I see with most people is they have multiple calls to action. I was on a podcast yesterday, and the hostess at the end of the podcast, she said, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. We got off the air. I said, you just asked your audience to do 3 different things. They're not going to do any of them, because you have to forgive me, I'm a former teacher. I always say, choices confuse and cause you to lose. If you go into a grocery store looking for mustard, let's say you're going to one of the big chains like Kroger or Food Lion or Publix or Smith's or Ralph's or whatever. When you go into that grocery store looking for mustard, there are 38 different types of mustard. None of those grocery stores are the number one grocery store in America based on volume. The number one grocery store in America based on volume is Trader Joe's. And the reason is, when you go into Trader Joe's looking for mustard, there's only one type. It's called mustard. They made the choice for you. It's very clear what they want you to do. This is the same with a presentation. You need to be very signaled in on what do I want my audience to do. And you also have to be realistic about it too. You have to, if you only speak to them for 15 minutes and you have a $20,000 offer, well, I'm pretty sure most people aren't going to take a $20,000 offer because you were not able to really build a relationship or establish trust within 20 minutes. If you can, that's great. That's wonderful. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I have a client, actually, this guy's great. I'm going to call him Gustavo. Gustavo should be president of the United States, Malcolm. Gustavo came to America 30 years ago, didn't have a dime, didn't speak English, learned the language, worked every menial, demeaning job on the planet, invested every dime he had into real estate. 30 years later, he's worth over $40 million. He's a total inspiration. And so Gustavo has a real estate coaching program. It takes 4 months, and his offer is $40,000 for his program. Now, I work with a lot of people on their offers, Malcolm. $40,000 is a very high ticket offer, but I always tell people, you got to do the work. You got to push it, just like I was saying earlier, you got to do your reps. I'm like, hey, Gustavo, we got to get you doing, you're never going to sell if you don't try it. So, and he said, well, I'm going on a podcast tonight. I'm like, well, here's my phone number. Call me up tomorrow. Tell me how it went. He calls me up the next day. And I should say your results may vary. This is not typical, Malcolm, but he calls me up the next day. He's like, Danny, you're a genius. I'm like, did you go on the podcast? He's like, yes. I'm like, did you make your offer? He's like, yes. I'm like, did you sell any? He's like, 23. Wait a sec. Reading's my specialty, not math, Malcolm. But if I did my math correctly, he sold $920,000 worth of coaching that night on an offer we had created that afternoon. Since then, he's made 8 figures on this offer. So, I mean, that was unbelievable. I've never seen a person that was able to sell that high ticket of an offer. But what was smart was the podcast he went on was exactly the audience that needed to hear his message. So he understood his audience. Again, everything goes back to those clarity questions. Who is your audience and what is the problem you're solving? You might have the best deal possible. You might have the best fudgesicle ever. But if you're selling it to a bunch of Eskimos that are freezing to death and they don't want it doesn't matter what you say. And so this is why it's so important to understand your audience and then also understand that what's the problem that they have? How can you solve that problem?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned that the audience doesn't when there's choices, when the audience is overwhelmed with choices, then they tend to freeze. They tend not to choose anything, right? And your example was the speaker who had 3 things for the 3 calls to action. So that actually made me think of podcasts. So with the podcast, if you have 3 things that you want the audience to do, right? I want you to go write a review. I want you to visit our social media pages. I want you to share this podcast with other people. I want you to do all these things. How then would a speaker, or what's your suggestion for the speaker choosing which one to use?
What's the most valuable to you? Because if you give them more than one, I can promise you right now, this is based on data. Every time you give them an extra thing to do, you're lowering your conversion rate. I've seen it time and time again. We've had so many people that even if they had 2 different choices, just by changing it to one choice, we significantly increase their conversion rate just by giving them one specific action. I mean, like at the end of your podcast, I'm going to practice what I preach. I'm going to give everybody one specific offer. And I always, I'm on a lot of stages where I'm not allowed to sell my services, which is fine. What you do then is you provide a free service and get everybody's information. Getting a name and an email is everything, because now I have them on a list, and now I can communicate and build up that relationship. People are amazing to me. I'm like, why would I do business with you when we just met? We have to get to know one another a little bit. I mean, people will connect with me on LinkedIn. Here's a little ninja strategy for you. Most people don't understand on LinkedIn, there's an audio feature. And so when people connect with me on LinkedIn, I send a quick little message. It allows a 60-second message. So I'll say something like, hey, Malcolm, thanks so much for connecting with me on LinkedIn. I just wanted to prove to you I'm a real human being. And I'll have a very personalized message like that. And you'd be amazed, Malcolm. I'm not even well over 90% of the people then, their message to me is, nice to meet you, Danny. And then they pitch me their offer. I'm like, I just met you. That's like meeting a person, having a first date and saying, will you marry me? You're a freak. How do you believe that this is a relationship? What you need to do is establish that relationship. I have a woman, I spoke in Montevideo, Uruguay in October, and the woman who hired me, she's been on my email list for 11 years. I'm like, wow. It took 11 years to build up her trust. That was the first lesson I learned from that. The second lesson I learned from that was, wow, good for me. Never give up. I stayed in touch with her for 11 years, providing her all kinds of content because, it's kind of like something in my men's Bible study. We were talking about it. When you pray to God, we said that God has three answers. The answers are yes, not yet, or, oh, I've got something better I got something better for you. And I think the same thing. Just because a person tells you no doesn't mean they're saying they're not interested. It means now is not the right time. And so as long as you're not being overly pushy and annoying, I actually just emailed my list today and said, hey, I want to be something that you look forward to every single week. Can you tell me when would you like me to email you? If you don't want me to email you, if I do email you, do you want it to be something that you read or something that you hear or something that you see, a video? How can I best serve you? I just ask people. It's amazing to me how many people won't ask. Like, you got to ask, well, what can I do that will best serve you? If people don't want to hear about my coaching program, well, okay, what do you want to hear about? You want to hear something inspirational? You want me to tell you stories? I can tell you stories. What can I do to best serve you? This is what's important about the content portion of your presentation. The content portion of your presentation is what most people focus on, and they're totally wrong to be doing that, because research shows the bun's more important than the burger. People remember the beginning of your talk and the end of your talk. They don't remember anything that you teach them. But what they do remember, Malcolm, is, are you helpful? So this is what's amazing. As long as you're helpful, that's what they remember. It doesn't matter how you're helpful. So I'll give you an example. When I first started speaking, I spoke primarily to education audiences, and one of my mentors was a gentleman by the name of Jim Rohn. Jim was great, one of the best speakers I've ever seen. He taught parents how to read aloud to their kids. And all of a sudden, in the middle of his presentation, he'd say, oh, I'm going to teach you something. I just thought of it. This is going to save your life someday. If you ever lock yourself out of your car, as long as you have your cell phone, call your spouse, have your spouse put your car keys next to the cell phone. You put your cell phone next to the car door. It'll unlock the car door. Malcolm, I've tried this from 3,000 miles away with my old Toyota Corolla. It worked. I couldn't believe it. And I probably wouldn't work with a lot of them like a Tesla or a modern car, but it works with older cars. Well, here's the point of this story. This has nothing to do with what Jim is teaching his audience, but I've seen at the end of his presentations, he's no longer with us, but I would watch him at the end of the presentations. People would gather around, and there was always 2 or 3 people say, oh my gosh, I saw you speak a couple of years ago. You taught me how to do that thing with the phone. I got locked out of my car. We did it. It worked. You are a lifesaver. Ever since then, I've been telling every school to book you as a speaker. Whoa. This has nothing to do with his talk. But what he did is he built trust with his audience because he gave them something they can use. Most people aren't helpful. Most people don't do as, I mean, I'm originally from New York, and people think New Yorkers are rude and people from the South are real sweet. I'm like, it's all screwed up. You go down to the South, you ask directions somewhere, and they'll be like, ain't you a sweetheart? And they're not helpful. They actually don't show you anything. You can be in New York City and say, where's the Statue of Liberty? And a person's like, what, you stupid? You're the stupidest person. They'll take you by the hand. They'll walk you to where you're going to get the boat to the Statue of Liberty. They're insulting you the whole time, but they were actually helpful. So it's a complete misconception. I think New Yorkers are like the most misunderstood the people like, oh, New Yorkers rally in a bad time. I'm like, New Yorkers are always cool. They're just brutally honest. Most people don't like honesty. That's why they go to social media. Social media, social media is the most dishonest thing in the world. I look at people's social media posts. It's always the best picture on the beach or whatever. To me, social media is like the haunted house ride, the haunted mansion ride at Disneyland. If you ever go to the haunted mansion ride, you start off, you're in this room and you see all these paintings and all the people look happy. And then the floor starts dropping and you see like this beautiful woman with a parasol. It turns out she's on a tightrope above an alligator. It's about to eat her. And the guy that's all happy, it turns out he's on a barrel of dynamite. And I'm like, that's social media. Everybody's putting out there, oh, this is me. I have $100 bills coming out of my pockets, and I mean, my shoes are too tight because I all the diamonds in them, and I'm married to a supermodel. No. Most of these people are overweight, they're under motivated, and they're just losers spending all their time on social media. Sorry.
No, you don't know how much I agree with you, Danny. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I'm over here saying, preach, brother, preach. Wonderful. Hey, so Danny, I understand that you have something that you want to give away to our audience.
Yeah, absolutely, Malcolm. I like to practice what I preach. So it's a thank you to you and your audience for having to listen to me give long answers to your short questions. I wanted to give everybody a freebie. So if you go to freestoryguide.com, guide like a tour guide, freestoryguide.com, I'm going to give everybody their own complimentary, well-crafted story blueprint. What this is the actual process that Coach Jimmy Dave and I take our clients through to help you create your well-crafted story. What this does for you is it takes the guesswork out of what story should I use and where should I put it in my presentation. And what this means is you now have an actual system to convert your audiences into actual clients. You can get that at freestoryguide.com. And again, Malcolm, thank you so much for having me today. Thanks for all that you do. And thanks for listening to me. I appreciate you, my friend.
Sure. Of course. This is wonderful. I appreciate you. I thank you so much for becoming the newest member to the Lighten Up Nation, to our community. So tell me, what excites you about the future of communication and storytelling and speaking?
What excites me as a business person, there's so many people that do it poorly, which gives me a huge audience still. I'm like, there's so many people. I watched 3 presentations yesterday, and all it was the most. Here's a strategy for everybody listening. There is, I've never had a person 6 months after a presentation I delivered say, "Oh, Danny, gosh, I loved your presentation 6 months ago. You know what? Impacted me the most was that one PowerPoint slide that had 28 bullet points that were in a font you couldn't read because it was so small. Gosh, I really remember that." I've never had a person say that, but I've had plenty of people that remembered a joke I said or a funny story I said. That's how you empower people. That's how human beings are wired to understand information. Of all people, it was Joseph Stalin who said, 1 million people dead is a statistic. 1 person dead is a tragedy. Translation: facts tell, but stories sell. Facts inform, stories transform.
I love it. I love that. Well, Danny, this has been just a great conversation, and I wish we go on and on and on and on, but alas, we can't. So, yes, all I could say is thank you so much. Finish this sentence for me, if you will. Great speakers don't talk. They
serve.
Great speakers don't talk, they serve. Danny Brassell, thank you so much, Dr. Danny Brassell. That is very important. That people work hard for that, and they should be acknowledged. So, Dr. Danny Brassell, thank you so much for just stimulating conversation. See, what did I tell you, audience? Snooze fest, right? It was the snooze fest throughout the whole thing. So, I want to thank you, our listeners, for continuing to support the show, because we could not do this without you. We're trying to build this global movement, and without you, we wouldn't be able to do that. So please, by all means, share our message, share our project, share what we're doing. We're on podcast platforms everywhere, the major ones. We're on YouTube. Just share it. Tell people about, hey, there was this fascinating podcast that I learned a whole lot about storytelling and speaking, and you might want to listen to it, or many other things that we talk about on this podcast and we share about. So please share our podcast, but most importantly, keep coming back yourself. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we have different podcasts, different conversations, and we need listeners to listen to the conversations. Otherwise, we're just speaking. We're just speaking to nobody. So keep listening. Keep listening. And most importantly, remember that every smile can open a door. Every laugh can open a heart. And every step can be your next victory. Until next time, thanks so much. Bye. Stressed out, stuck, or leading on autopilot? It's not a motivational problem, it's a connection problem. My weekly virtual improv classes boost engagement, collaboration, and retention, all while having fun. Register now for a complimentary month